Hello everyone, and welcome back to another session of Dark Souls PvP. This time I am dual wielding. And no, I'm not doing it because everyone else is doing it. I actually started doing this kind of not intentionally. One of my friends the other day, he showed me a left-handed build. And it's exactly how it sounds, a weapon in the left hand, a shield in the right hand. And man, it threw me off so much. But it made me wonder, what other weapons, other than the halberd, which is what he was using, what other weapons are different in any way when they're in the left hand? So I found that greatswords actually are held the same way that a straight sword would be. And that sort of led me to pair up the bastard sword and the silver knight straight sword, because they're roughly the same length and they look kind of awesome together. And really the fact that they looked really cool together is what made me want to learn how to become proficient with this setup. Now, first off, I wanted to have a little bit of a shout out and thank you to Suicide Frog. He is actually going to be uploading sometime soon. He's going to start uploading. He just got a PVR, just ordered it the other day, and he was my sparring partner for these first few matches that I'm showing. And he did a very good job of kicking my ass and breaking me of a few bad habits. Because, whenever I start off with a new setup or a new build or anything, or even a new weapon for that matter, I always am very predictable with it. And he really helped break me of a few predictable bad habits. So, big shout out and thank you to him. Anyway, getting started with dual wielding, I have noticed quite a few things about it. For the most part, with the people who are doing it, I've noticed that they typically will use in their offhand a weapon that can parry, and not any other kind of weapon. It doesn't seem to be common. It'll always be a weapon that can parry. And it made me wonder, why? Well, I sort of came up with a reason why I think it is. I'm not sure if it's exactly accurate or not, but it is more user-friendly to, have a weapon that can parry. It's more familiar. And that's why I have the dagger in the left hand as a backup for my bastard sword. It's what I use it for. But I like to have the bastard sword be the main weapon in my left hand. And the reason for that, actually, is because of the fact that it does more damage than any of the weapons I use. It is the slowest of them, but it does the most damage. And I think because I chose to do a little setup like that for my first time really getting into dual wielding, it helped me learn how to dual wield a little bit faster, actually. And the reason for that is because my Silver Knight Straight Sword is my medium speed, medium damage weapon. My dagger is my fast speed, low damage. And the Bastard Sword would be the slow speed, high damage. So I've got things that are in different ranges, different brackets, so to speak, and it really helped me learn how to use them effectively and together, sort of all to benefit each other. And actually later on I threw in a crossbow to the mix, and that let me get in some ranged attacks, which really was helpful. So that really is why I think, personally, that it's good to have a weapon that can't parry in the offhand, and as a backup for that, have one that can parry. That's just my opinion on it, because from what I've seen, a lot of people who are starting to dual wield will be using a weapon in the offhand that can parry and never using it to attack. And because I've got 3 different weapons with 3 different swing speeds and damage outputs, I have variety in what I can do. And because of that variety, it encourages the use of using all of them together. And now, speaking of variety, I probably should talk a little bit about my build. I've been getting some questions on it recently. This is my typical quality build, actually. I have used it on pretty much every single weapon showcase that I've done. I used it on my more recent bow setup showcase thingy that I did with the goffs, whatever, great bow, composite bow, and light crossbow. That was actually the same quality build. And I really like this build. It's 50 vitality, 45 endurance, 40 strength, and 35 dexterity. And the way it's set up, I can fast roll with any weapon combination up to 18 weight. I can flip with any weapon combination up to 6. Now, that is incredibly well put together for my purposes, and it lets me do a lot of interesting things, switch weapons a lot, do a lot of different combinations, and I really like that. It, aside from the fact that it can throw people off, it keeps it from getting boring for me, because whenever I get bored, I can always come up with some new stupid or great combination of weapons and try them out and be reasonably successful, because people either won't expect it or it's just a good combination. Like this right here. I mean, I would think that not many people know that a greatsword is held the same way as a straight sword would be if you put it in the left hand, but it still has the swing of a greatsword. So it can really throw people off. I've had people ask me what weapon I'm using in the offhand, and they're always seemingly surprised when I tell them it's actually the bastard sword. So that can really make a difference, because people will be expecting a faster swing or something, and then I can get a nice hit in. So it really is quite helpful. Other things that I'd like to talk about would be the variety of the build, the variety that this build offers, and the variety in general, or having variety in general in your PvP. And really, I think that's a good way to improve. There are actually 2 ways to improve, in my opinion, and this is my personal favorite because it keeps me from getting bored. My suggested way to improve would be to mix things up, try new things, try new weapons, and become familiar with a variety of weapons. And the reason for that is because if you're familiar with a variety of weapons, you'll know how to, counter a variety of weapons. That's really what it comes down to, because in my opinion, the best way to learn how to counter a weapon is to actually learn how to use that weapon yourself. That's just my opinion on it, though, and I've actually noticed recently that I'm horrible at fighting against Quelaag's Fury Sword, so I'm going to be picking that up sometime soon so I can experiment with that and hopefully learn how to counter it by fighting more experienced players who know how to counter it reliably, which I, for one, don't. So that's just my take on that. The other way to improve, from what I've seen, and it's a way that a lot of players do focus on doing, would be to use one weapon, one setup, and just use that as their main thing. But with that, you become a master at that setup, so to speak, but if you're fighting someone who figures out how to counter you, then you're kind of in trouble. Now, with my setup, with my suggestion on how to improve, you have variety, and with that variety you can pretty much be a little bit more unpredictable with what you're going to be doing, and with that variety you learn how to counter more things. So if you're fighting that person who is using that one thing and you know how to counter that because you've used it too, well then there you go, you're kind of a little bit better off, in my opinion. But again, that's just my opinion. A lot of people will focus on using that one thing, and they're going to be really good with it. Like, for example, the really good scythe users, their dead angling abilities are just incredible. So it can go both ways. Now, this fight right here, and actually the next fight after it, I got a bit lucky with who I was invading. If you guys who weren't watching his stream can, guess who this is, then feel free to, guess. You'll see it in the next fight, in the beginning of the next fight. And, well, I actually had never run into him before, so I was quite happy that I ran into him, and I'm quite happy that the first fight ended as well as it did, because at this point, this setup, which I am incredibly unfamiliar with still, was only a day old, and now it's actually 2 days old while I'm recording this commentary, so yay, 2 days old, woo. Really though, it works pretty well. Right there, I really wish I landed that attack, I really do. And I don't know how that backstab happened, it was just the way he rolled, I guess, but oh well. So, overall, I think that with trying to improve in PvP, mixing things up and trying new things is really the way to go. But a lot of people who do that will run into difficulties when they switch weapons, and yes, it was Peeve that I had fought and invaded completely at random. I think really the best way to improve is to switch up your weapons, but a lot of people will have difficulty when using a weapon they're not familiar with. And I, for one, had that difficulty too when I was first starting to do weapon showcases. And the way I found to force myself to learn how to use that weapon was a little bit ridiculous. And right there, he got his burrito combo on me. Yeah, I should have expected that. The way I did it was a little bit ridiculous. I would actually deposit every single weapon other than the one I was using into the bottomless box. And it worked. It really worked. Because it forced me to learn how to use whatever weapon I had on me. It was either that or nothing. And, I mean, using no weapon is just stupid. So, it's really a very strange sounding but viable way to force yourself to improve. At least for me it was. So if you're interested in trying to improve with a new weapon or something like that, I would actually really suggest doing that because it worked for me personally. If it doesn't work for you, oh well, that's just what I did. So yeah. Overall though, I really had a lot of fun dual wielding, and for the most part, what I see is a lot of people not using their weapon in the offhand for anything but attacking. Peeve was a very good example of someone who does use their offhand weapon for attacking right there in that last fight. So, of course, a big shout out to him and big thank you for the great matches. Hopefully we can get a Battle of the Uploaders going sometime. Yay, that'd be nice. Anyway, these last two fights, it was just me sort of focusing on learning how to parry with the dagger. And the reason I'm using the dagger is because I just felt like it. No other reason than that. Yeah, I was just focusing on learning how to parry with it, and yeah, these are the results. So, these last two fights aren't that interesting. They're just me trying to parry some people, and that's really all it is. But anyway, that pretty much sums up all I had to talk about. If you guys have any comments or suggestions on my dual wielding ability, for those who are more familiar with it and better at it than I am, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Please feel free to shoot me a message and show me, and help me out with it, because I'm still learning it myself and I'd like to improve. So yeah, again, this is the last fight right now. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I will see you next time.